wanted to introduce you today to one of our little miracles, Shawn Murphy, and his dad Matthew. And Matthew's going to tell you about Shawn's story.
So thank you so much for coming out today and having me here to speak. My name is Matthew Murphy, and this is my son Shawn. And Shawn will actually be 5 years old on June 26th, and that is definitely a miracle. We just can't believe that he's here. I want to thank all of you guys for coming and being a part of this. Thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me to speak. And I just want to kind of tell you a little bit about moments in our life, and we all have them, big and small, and they're going to happen to us regardless. Well, you can prepare for them, you can train for them, you can go out and hit golf balls, but as soon as you get to the first tee, your reaction is going to really define who you are in that moment. Well, all of us have a moment, and I had a very, very specific moment with Shawn when he was born. And if it's okay, I'd like to tell you that story. Well, Shawn was born with what was called a multicystic dysplastic kidney. And what that means is he had several cysts in one place instead of having a kidney. And the other one was there. Now, for all the guys that are out there, first thing in my mind that I can relate to is like, is he going to be able to drink beer with me when he gets older? Is this going to be an issue? I mean, I know. I mean, it's my son. And they said, absolutely, he's going to be fine. He'll end up being able to do everything normal because his kidney's going to grow twice the size. And so we're like, oh, I'm good. So we're good. And then he was born. And I remember we were trying to figure out if he was going to have kidney function and that other kidney to make sure it was working. And then one day in the hospital, and they weren't going to release this till it happened, one day in the hospital, he finally used the restroom with my mother, and I've never seen someone laugh so hard to be peed on in her life. It was really awesome all of us were dancing around on that slick floor, but it was still a miracle right there. So we took him home, and this was new. Everything was new for me. This is the only child I have, and I had a chance to experience everything just like all of you that's had children before. It was an amazing time. And then I had to change his diaper for the first time. And how many of you guys and girls, how many of you have sons? Okay. What happens when you take the diaper off for the first time and the wind hits? Well, one stream went this way, and then one stream went this way, and then one went out of his belly button. That's not supposed to happen. I'm pretty sure as a new dad that's not supposed to happen. So I ended up calling the pediatrician, and I talked to them, and they said, bring him in, we'll take a look at him. And the pediatrician looked, and they noticed, yeah, there's something wrong here. So they called Texas Children's Hospital, and they immediately have us admitted. We go over and speak to the doctor, and he sends us for some tests for urology and an MRI. Shawn was 8 days old when this happened. And I remember specifically thinking, I'm not supposed to be here. This is not supposed to happen to my family. And then all of a sudden, they sent us back to the MRI room, and they had to put a catheter in. And if anybody's ever seen a catheter that goes in an infant, it's about the size of a needle. And they tried to put it in, and it wouldn't go in. And then they asked me, because he was squirming, can you hold his shoulders down on the table? I said, sure. And of course, my wife is sitting in a chair on the other side of me, out of arm's reach, who is obviously still exhausted from giving birth, not even 6 days, 8 days ago. And I'm holding down my son's shoulders while they're trying to ram this catheter in and do everything they possibly can to get this to work. It wasn't working. Something was wrong. So finally I said, can you just call a doctor? And they said, absolutely. And that's when Dr. Sissick said, we've got to fix this belly button, it's leaking. it's a birth defect, and so we have to fix that. And what we'll do is we'll just do some exploratory surgery to find out what's wrong. Well, at 10 days old, Shawn had his first surgery. And we sat in the waiting room and we waited, and we just wanted to figure out what was wrong. And finally, Dr. Six's come back out. And he's looking at us and he tells us, well, here's what I found out. What I found out is your son has 2 urethras. They're coming out from where we normally as guys have them, and then another one from his prostate that went towards his anus. He was urinating from 2 different places. So there's where those 2 and then 3 streams from his belly button came from. I was still a new parent. I expected the doctor to know everything as possible, and I also knew that I was in the best hospital possible. So we asked him, what does it take to fix it? And I remember him looking at me and saying, I don't know, I've never seen this before. You don't want your doctor to say that. And I just remember specifically saying, this is my moment. This is a defining moment. I can either crawl in that corner and I can feel sorry for Shawn and sorry for my family and do what I can, just crawl in a ball and cry. Or I can do something about it. So I stood up, extended my hand out to the doctor, and I said, well, doctor, we're going to make a deal. You're going to do all the research that you can and figure out how to fix my son, and I'm going to make sure that another doctor is not allowed to say what you said to me. Any other hospital that I went to that wasn't a part of the Children's Miracle Network or Texas Children's Hospital, that doctor would have looked at me and just been mad. Not this doctor. He stood up and he shook my hand and he said, deal. Well, about 6 months later, he came back. He spent that much time researching and found a way to fix my son. And he explained to me exactly what it was. He says, what we're going to do is we're going to take this good one, we're going to swing it around to the bad one, we're going to get rid of the bad one, all explaining, and told us what it was. And I was like, okay, sounds great. I'm glad you understand what it is. And he said, when do we do this? And he said, well, to be honest with you, the older he gets, the less likely that he is going to die on the table because he's young. I mean, he was 6 months old at the time. And he said, so the older he gets, you can do it. And to be honest with you, you can do it whenever. It doesn't matter. It hasn't been done now. I mean, obviously, he can cope with it and figure it out. And there's where that guy mind came back. My wife's immediately sitting there and going, well, you know what? We got to do it soon. Because I love this child, and if I love him anymore, I don't know if I can let him go. And I thought, that is a really good college trick. You can put a shot glass there and a shot glass over there, and you can fill them both. You can laugh, it's okay. And she didn't. And we ended up having his second surgery at 8 months old. Obviously, at 8 months old, you don't say much. So after the surgery, they wheeled him back into his hospital room. And he just stood so still. An 8-month-old, not moving at all. He knew something was wrong. And so what he ended up doing is just sat there. And I was worried. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I remember we had a moment right then. He looked at me and he said, without saying a word, communicated with me, and he's like, I got this, Dad. You don't worry about me. You just tell me when it's time to get out of this bed. I felt that and I knew that. And when it was confirmed is every time a doctor or a nurse or anybody would come to the hospital room, he would never look at them. He would always turn and look at me. He was waiting for my reaction. Well, finally, I had one. Because the doctor looked at me and he said, well, I think it's time for him to get up and start moving around. And you could not keep that 8-month-old from moving. They had to pull the wires off really fast and everything else. He was wanting to get up. We got him in a stroller, we rolled him around the floor, and he ended up knowing. At 14 months old, he had his third surgery, and he had this exact same thing. I learned then that if you have enough determination and resilience, you can overcome anything. And he overcome death. And it really inspired me. And I did not want to be the main excuse of why we didn't have a long life together. And you look at me today, I'm not the same guy. I was an overweight smoker. I really enjoyed life. And so I wanted to get in shape. And that was my chance. It was time for me to keep up with my end of the deal. They saved my son's life, and I had to keep up with my end of the deal. So I decided he went through the impossible, and I want to honor that. What can I do that's impossible? And I remember I was sitting outside with my wife and smoking a cigarette. She says, well, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, I think I'm going to become an Ironman triathlete. I've never ran, swam, or biked. And I remember she looking at me and she says, well, I guess the first thing you got to do is stop smoking. And then we'll figure out how we can raise money and what we need to do. So I called Texas Children's Hospital and I talked to them and I said specifically, is there any type of birth defect or urological organizations that we can give directly to Texas Children's Hospital? You save a life. And we did a lot of research together and we really didn't find anything major. So we ended up starting something at Texas Children's Hospital because we wanted to help families and parents that are affected by birth defects. Because you never really feel like there's people around you. You feel very hopeless and alone when you're going through those experiences. So through Texas Children's Hospital and the Children's Miracle Network, we created a parent package program that we then give back to the parents. Once they find out that they have a child that has a birth defect, we give them a little care package of soaps and toiletries and everything that they may need in the hospital when they're there with their child. Pillows, blankets, and then a little card that says, you're not alone. We know how you feel. It's been the greatest experience ever in that journey. But in 2012, I ended up crossing that finish line for the Ironman Texas. And then again, last November, I carried a flag, 3x4 flag, that had names of children that were born with birth defects on it for the whole 26.2 mile run of the Ironman for the second time. And just this past weekend, if anybody was at the Ironman Texas, you probably saw the flag that Shauna, another athlete friend of mine, carried for the whole 26.2 mile run. We've been able to help and provide inspiration to thousands of families that are out there. And it's amazing. It was because of a moment that I decided to take an action. In reality, this is your moment. What you guys have done is amazing. But I want you to think about the moment that you're in right now. Because it's probably not only going to change your life, but it's going to change families like ours. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And God bless you for everything that you've done for Texas Children's Hospital. Appreciate it.